Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. So I will present a new project that I'm involved in, but it's not just one more project for me. In fact, I mean, it's a project that has changed a little bit my academic career, and I basically hope that the next 5 years will be devoted to this project. So I'm trying to get rid of a lot of the duties I have until now and to be able to focus. So I would like basically to explain why I consider it like that and what it's about. And I guess I have to explain how it came about. So basically it came about when I was invited to India like a little bit more than a year ago to give a series of tutorials on our field, on music computing. So I gave at the IIT Bombay a series of lectures with as part of a winter school in audio and signal processing with people from all over India, very bright people from all the IIT schools in India. And I basically talked about the kinds of research we do at the Music Technology Group, but also in general in the community. So I talk about sound synthesis, modeling instruments. I talk about all our MIR work. I talked about all our interface design and instruments that we have built. And all the kind of goals and challenges that we had. And after 3 days of giving the lectures, talking with the students, going out with them and going to some concerts, I realized that something was wrong, that there was something wrong in the way that I was presenting the things. There was something wrong in the topics I was talking about, in the sense that it was not reaching and it was not so relevant for them, that there was some sort of very Western point of view and attitude from my part and the kind of things that I was talking about that didn't quite make it there. So I came back with from India with clearly that the aim that I had to rethink some of the challenges and some of the priorities that I was having in research. So the first one, it was clear that that music computing research as we are doing it, and in fact in general IT research, really does not respond to the multiculturality and all the different cultures that are around the world. It's very much biased by a set of paradigms and perspectives that most of the researchers have, and so in principle that's not bad, but so each of us has a set of kind of biases and cultural frameworks that you work with, and that we were basically using those and not being aware that that was a big sort of bias. So basically it means that the kind of research we do is targeted towards specific kinds of music, towards specific cultural frameworks. So anyway, so that's clearly a problem. And then of course what it entails is that the kinds of things we do are really the data models, the cognition models, the user models, interaction models, ontologies, and everything that we basically develop and build is very much culturally biased. And even more in the kind of MIR area that we work, we are sort of using as our music information, as the data from which we develop our work. We basically use CDs and metadata. That's what music information for us is. That's from where we build all our models and from where we want to really explain what music is about. Okay, so when I came back, it was a month to the deadline to big initiatives from Europe, which is the European Research Council funding. And it's a great initiative. In fact, it's an initiative that was started by the European Commission as a kind of an alternative to the most of the funding strategies that the EU has, which I guess most of you know. It's very much like a set of consortia. You have to build a very detailed proposal. You have deliverables. You have to sort of follow their guidelines. You have to be within one of their priorities. The ERC started with trying to do something completely different, building the idea of funding around researchers with a single idea, and basically giving them money to do basically what they wanted from that idea. So freeing them from all the bureaucratic and the constraints that all these other projects have. So I applied to this ERC grant, and so I got the funding. So CompMusic, which is the name of the project, is now funded with an ERC advance grant for 5 years with a budget of 2.5 million euros, which is, strictly speaking, if you consider other type of projects, in fact, that I have been involved with, the funding is not maybe that different or that much more, but it's a huge difference in the sense of how I can leverage on this funding, and how can I allocate it, and how can I use this money, and how can I organize my research in the next 5 years. So it's, for most people, we consider this sort of the dream funding, because it's what really, as a researcher, you really want to carry an ambitious project like this one. Okay, so what's CompMusic about? So the main objective, as I was mentioning, is really to promote a multicultural approach to our research. So the research area is basically what I have been doing all along, but the idea is to, by putting on the hat of multiculturalism, I believe, and I hope you will see, changes a lot of the things that we do, and changes a lot of the approaches that we are having, and changes a lot of the solutions that we can find from those problems. So that's the major aim of the project. So, but basically then the others is the kind of standard things that we do. So we want to advance in the formalization and description of music, so that they can be accessible through computational means. So we can develop IT systems that can take advantage of music information. We want to of course, break or advance in this gap that we have between all the audio that we can process and all these semantically or culturally meaningful concepts that we deal with, and that all these different cultures deal with. But of course, we want to specifically look at music repertoires that we haven't been looking at, and that hopefully will give us some new problems, and propose maybe new solutions with them. So, but it's not only the data and the music repositories and the music sort of information that we want to deal with. We also, as soon as you put this idea of culture-driven information processing, you need to really consider the context, the cultural community, as very much part of what you have to deal with. We cannot model music without modeling the community that is listening, is making, is appreciating that music. So anyway, so these are kind of the general objectives, and in order to do that, it requires a very interdisciplinary type of approach to the problems. The first one is that it entails bringing in different disciplines. So we have to, of course, use all our information processing research and methodologies, both signal processing and data mining and all the data-driven type of ideas that we have been working on. We need to definitely bring in more a musicological perspective. We have to really have sort of data and information around this data that is musicologically sort of sound, and that there is musicological research around it. Cognition is definitely an important one, even though there is still now not that much sort of research in cognition related with culture or multiculturalism. Normally perception and cognition are sort of a level before kind of cultural specialization, let's say. But there is a lot of very interesting work in cognition related with cultural specificity, which is interesting. And of course, human-computer interaction. So basically, most of the areas that we are talking about, but here they really need each other. Also, we don't have enough by just using all our numerical processing and quantitative type of approach. We need to do also a very qualitative type of description of our problems and our data. And we need to approach not just the engineering type of modeling approach, but we need to also include some more basic scientific type of approach. The information sources, it's clear we need to bring information sources, data coming from different places, apart from all our audio-driven type of features, the symbolic scores. We need to bring in, as much as possible, data from these sort of music communities or musical cultures that can give us some idea about how music is used, is perceived, is appreciated, etc. So we need to really try to collect as much data that can reflect these more community aspect of the music. And a very important part of the project is that we cannot do that from Barcelona, from London, looking to India or looking to China. We have to do this research from those places too. We have to involve people that are immersed in their cultural reality, in those music cultures, so that the very cultural specific information and cultural specific concepts and new paradigms can emerge by involving people that are completely immersed in those cultures. So one of the things I am doing is establishing small research groups in different places. I was just in Turkey a few weeks ago, and I'm going next week to India, and I'm basically going to universities, and I'm trying to find people that are already working in these areas, but of people that are very much within those cultures. And of course, we have to select some music cultures. So the music cultures that I have selected for this project are the classical traditions from India, the Hindustani, the two main ones, Hindustani and Carnatic. The classical Turkish tradition, the Ottoman one. The culture from Andalusia, it's called Andalusia, it's the Arab. In fact, it was born in the south of Spain, but when we kicked all the Arabs out, they took their culture to the northern part of Africa, so now it lives quite well in many northern African countries. And the main Chinese culture, the Han tradition, which is very much alive in many of these places. So why did I choose these repertoires? Why not others? I mean, there are many. It's clearly that sometimes here we are not so much aware of the diversity of mature cultures that are around the world in terms of music. But why these ones? One reason is because they are all part of formalized classical traditions, so with a strong influence in current society. So that's a very important aspect for the project. We need things, I mean, I'm not going to go around doing field work and recording and interviewing sort of musicians. I want to start from data, from studies, from experiences that are mature, and that's the ideal for that are on classical cultures. And by classical cultures, in fact, it's quite clear historically what does that mean. It means that at one point in history, there was a culture that had the political and military and power of a given area, so that they established their culture, and they were able to fund researchers, academicians, musicians, to really establish that as a sort of their culture. And this has happened, of course, in many places around the world. And the ones I chose are in this situation. At one point in history, they were established as classical traditions. They were formalized. They were standardized. And that's a lot of very good set of references that have been generated because of that. There is a lot of treatises, etc. So, in fact, yeah, there is, out of them, there are musicological and cultural studies from which we can work. There is some maybe a little bit older, some maybe newer. Most of them are very much alive now from an academic point of view, so there are people studying those cultures that we can work with. And it's not just at the musicological level, but also at the performance practice level. All these cultures, they have alive performance practices. So that means that there are conservatories, that this music and the instruments are taught. So there is a tradition of how to teach this music, how to learn it. There are manuals for doing that. And they are not just cultures that are isolated, and they are sort of in a small kind of communities. I mean, when you realize okay, India, maybe not everyone listens to classical Hindustani and Carnatic music, but most of the music there is very much influenced by this music, and I would say that a large part of the population appreciates this type of music. And we are talking about 1 billion people, 1,000 million people. I mean, that's not a small community. So this and the Indian is clear, and others maybe not so much, but they live within social, cultural contexts that are very much alive, and that therefore is not sort of these classical traditions. Maybe it's even the classical Western music in some ways may be more kind of close in itself and has not evolved as much as some of these traditions. I mean, when you go to Turkey and you go to India, a lot of modern music, you see the connection between these classical traditions and the music that they produce now. So basically, with these repertoires, with this weight, the idea is that we have a chance to challenge the kind of information paradigms and these Western-centric set of paradigms that we have been using for so long. And they, of course, they're even being used by research groups in India or in China or in all these countries. I mean, they are not exempt from this sort of bias, because many of these have been the standard bias of the academic community as a whole. So anyway, but I believe that having such strong cultural music cultures that we can work with, we might have a chance in some aspects to challenge a lot of the things that we're doing and identify problems and propose solutions that, of course, the solutions and the problems, well, especially the solutions, will be applicable to many things, I mean, and to Western music too. The only thing is that because of our approach, we have focused on a certain set of problems, and certain other set of problems have not been dealt with because maybe it's not needed or is not a big priority when we try to approach Western music. Okay, so let me just maybe just briefly talk a little bit about some of these musics. In Indian classical music, and I guess especially here in London, I would say that it's one of the cities in which this culture is more present in the West. So I hope that many people here are in fact more aware than myself on these types of music. It's the concept of raga is one of the concepts that really drives a lot of this music, and the first approximation that you do with that, and the first papers you read about it, and the amazing simplifications that we tend to do about what raga is, it's amazing. I mean, we try to impose the concept of scale, of a set of pitches, or of these very Western tonal music type of concepts that we sort of project into a concept that has something to do with that, but is completely different. The concept of raga is much broader than just a simple set of notes ordered with a given set of pitches. The concept of rhythm is a completely different one. It's not a polyphonic type of music. It's more a heterophonic kind of thing that it's very interesting in terms of the relationship that happens with the different musical instruments. It has a big improvisatory aspect apart from the pre-composed. So in the Carnatic music, let me just play you some music. Hindustani music, it's from the north, and it has been better, I guess, known in the West because of musicians like Ravi Shankar, because it's more maybe instrument-driven and virtuosistic, and so it has been sort of accepted maybe more and commercialized more in the West. So this is just a little fragment of Ravi Shankar. So there has been quite a bit of work on Indian music. Maybe it's of all the repertoires I have chosen, the one that academically has been more worked on. And within, for example, the MIR community, there's some very good work on like raga recognition or recognition of the tabla or synthesis, sound synthesis of different instruments. In the Turkish and Arab traditions, which they share the idea of the makams as sort of their way to organize melody, it's a very interesting culture because in some sense has been more influenced by the West. Istanbul, sort of the border between the East and the West, and the Ottoman Empire, and then the Turkish Republic, were actively and in some periods of history, like at the beginning of the 19th century, consciously wanting to adapt to Western type of music. So in an explicit way, in fact, they sent composers to Europe to learn about Western music and sort of to adapt their Ottoman classical music to Western type of things. They incorporated Western notation. Well, they changed the alphabet. But of course, it has preserved very much the tradition and the Ottoman classical. Now, of course, the Turkish music is a very broad concept. It's one of these countries that has been very tolerant in terms of incorporating and letting many cultures live within the country. So there has been many music traditions that have evolved and has survived within Turkey. The Ottoman one is maybe the one that was led by the Ottoman Empire the most. And it's interesting. It's very interesting, and it's especially very interesting because of this Western and influence and how it has handled these adapting, like Western notation, adapting some concepts. So here is just a fragment of Ottoman classical music. The Andalusian tradition, in some sense, is the one that maybe now is going through the hardest times, in the sense that the universities in Northern Africa, let's say, they do not have, they are not that active in these fields. They may have other priorities. So a lot of the interesting research about Andalusian music has been done, for example, in France because of the colonization, and in Spain there is a little bit. But anyway, there is some very good centers for teaching, conservatories, and very strong living traditions in Egypt, in Algeria, in Morocco.
شقراء حسناء لك در يشوب صفاها كدر يشوب صفاها لا كدر يشوب صفاها كالياسمين نقاوة وعبيرة الوتد فضمني من شعرها ليل رأيت البدر في منيرا.
The Chinese Han tradition, well, it is amazingly old tradition that, interestingly enough, has been maintained without that many influences from other cultures. It's interesting, well, lately it has been also adapted and modernized. So for example, I mean, they have these huge orchestras and they sort of develop a polyphonic type of tradition to their more heterophonic type of original type of music. But anyway, so I guess most of you also are familiar with it. Okay, so well, that's a lot of stuff, a lot of information, a lot of different cultures, and of course, it's impossible to really make justice to all these different traditions. This is kind of the tasks that basically are described in the project proposal. The nice thing about, as I mentioned, a project like this is that it will be quite free to adapt the work to be done to whatever comes up and whatever it's found to be most interesting. But clearly, in general, let me just briefly mention the kinds of things that I will be working on, and already, in fact, I have already started working on with some students. Clearly, there is an area of collecting data. After all, this is a kind of a data-driven project, so we need to have information to analyze. So the collection of data that is appropriate to understand all these different music cultures is maybe one of the key aspects of it. Then there is another, which is try to really frame that data within a sound musicological context. So we want to really involve people that make sure that the data we start from is good and it makes sense and can interpret that correctly. We need to develop ontologies, and this more than in any of the work in MIR of Western music. I mean, the concepts and the terminology and the relationships that are being used in non-Western music is so complicated and so different that we need to develop sort of vocabularies and ontologies with which we can interact and with which we can sort of find differences and commonalities between these different cultures. The typical area of audio description, so trying to analyze the audio. An important area is trying to understand users and communities. By user profiling, I refer both to the idea of user-driven analysis, but community-driven analysis, and I will briefly talk about that. The concept of developing interaction paradigms and interfaces that are useful and are relevant and they are culture specific, that's also an important aspect. And the idea is to be able to at least have some unifying models that can show the sort of the usefulness of having worked with these individual things in some specific problems that. So basically, I guess from this presentation, I guess you have got a glimpse of what the 5 years ahead of me will be dedicated to. And I think that it's quite clear that it's big and it's a challenging project. I don't think I will be able to solve a lot of the things that I would like to solve. But if out of the project and out of the kind of music computing research that we will be carrying the project, but hopefully that through the project we will influence in the community, and that's a very important part of the project. Is not, of course, we cannot do much. I mean, we can do what we can, but we can also influence a lot of the research that is being done by the community, and so that we can contribute to develop information technologies that are really relevant for multicultural perspective, so that they are not just useful for understanding and using commercial Western music by Western people, but that we can have an IT that can make justice to all these cultures, and that maybe can also help in some way maintain them. Because in fact, one of the things I realized in India is that they had, the British were there for hundreds of years, and they really had a lot of influence. But I am afraid that the influence that the British had for those many years will be less than the influence that Google, Wikipedia, and all these technologies, that they are not colonizing technologies, I mean that they are not from an empire, will have in India. So these technologies, if we are not aware, will have a bigger impact, and for me in a negative way, in the sense that they are forced to create music, to search music, and to interact with music with Western concepts. And that automatically changes their way of making music. You go to Turkey, and they do not use the maqams that do not fit the tempered scale, because they cannot use it. If they want to use a sequencer, it's a headache. So what the heck? Let's use the maqams that are tempered scales, that are like the minor scale. So that means that the maqams that are more interesting, that are more different, are being suppressed. And that's the same for other concepts in many of these places. So anyway, so we really have to make sure that the information technologies we develop are fair to all these different cultures. So anyway, so if you're interested in the project or the ideas behind it, I am most interested in talking with anyone. And there is a website already up, and the idea is to make it quite active. So there is a lot of information and also, in fact, things for people to contribute. And right now I'm at the phase of setting up the project. The project will start in the summer, but I am sort of traveling around and sort of evangelizing about the project and going to these countries to find good people to work in it. So any good people that wants to work in it, I'm sure we can find ways to collaborate. So thank you very much.